Hey there, I'm Kat, and this is Brews and Reviews. It's that time of year again, time to talk about my favourite books of 2023. I found it kind of hard to pick between all of the books I read because I did read some really good books, but I feel like these 8 just really stood out to me, and I just want to talk to you guys about them, let you know what I was really vibing with in 2023. Also, if you want to check out the worst books that I read in 2023, then that video is coming too. So the first book on this list is actually one of the first books that I read in the year, and that was Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. I'm sure if you've been around my channel then you'll have heard me talk about this book, and you might have seen me make a giant sign for the Legends and Lattes coffee shop, which just lives in my house now. I'm thinking about putting it up in my kitchen because I feel like that would be a good place for it, you know, very kitchen vibes. Anyway, let's talk about the book. So this is a very cozy fantasy about an orc who decides to open up a coffee shop in this town that has never heard of coffee, so she is basically building this shop from the ground upwards and kind of collects this family around her, and it's just really cute and so nice to read. Very cozy, and I just loved it. I actually read it twice last year because I wanted to read it again, and I did. I just was like, I'm gonna read it again, so I did. And I feel like this one just gave me such nice positive vibes. It's really opened up a new genre for me, because I usually read like darker fantasy or, you know, things with lots of people dying in them, and this is just a completely different avenue of fantasy, and I definitely want to look out for more books that are like this. But I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, and I'll probably read it again. Yeah. It has got a prequel that's out that I haven't read yet, but I did get it for Christmas, so I'm so excited to read it. The next book on my list was The Ballad of Song, and Snakes by Suzanne Collins, and I have to tell you that I'm so surprised that this book made it onto this list. I didn't even want to read this book for the longest time. I kept putting it off and just being like, no one cares about President Snow. I don't want to hear about his redemption story. And then I think it was Jenna from Just a Little Bit Random and I were having a chat about this, and she was like, it's not a redemption story. And I was like, okay then. So I picked it up and I really enjoyed it, like a lot. And the thing about this book is that I enjoyed it a lot more after reading it. So I read it and then I just kept thinking about it, and it kept like rolling around in my head, and I was like, actually I really enjoyed that book. So I'm actually quite intrigued to see if I reread this book whether it would get a higher rating. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, and I'm kind of feels like 5 stars in my brain now, and I don't know if that's like my thoughts afterwards. I don't know. This has been made into a film now, so I'm sure most people know what the story is about. This is a prequel to The Hunger Games and features President Snow as a teenager. It's about the 10th Hunger Games and how President Snow acts as a mentor for the District 12 Girl Tribute. And there's a lot more going on in that. I don't really want to spoil it because I do think it's quite good to go in knowing as little as possible. Just as long as you know that it's not a redemption arc for him. He is a horrible person. He has always been a horrible person, but he has stuff going on in his brain that's really interesting to read about. So I definitely recommend this one, and I really enjoyed it. So the next book on this list is The Demon's Bargain by Katie Robert. This is part of a series that I believe starts with The Dragon's Bride. I can't remember what that book's called. Why can't I remember what it's called? Anyway, this book follows my favourite character from that series, a non-binary demon called Romanu. And I'm so happy to see them actually get a love interest, because their sass and the snarky comments and just general chaos attitude is just so nice to see in an actual romantic relationship. This is sort of like a side novel because it also in another side collection at this like magical carnival, and the main female character is a witch called Leonora who summons a demon to try and get her family's amulet back. And you know, there's just like chaos and romance stuff that happens, and it's good smut as well, so that's always good. I really enjoyed this one, and I'm so glad that I actually got to see Romanu have like a starring role in a book rather than just appearing as a side character in the other books. And yeah, it was great. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book on this list is Acture Jeeves Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is the 3rd book in the Brown Sisters trilogy, and it follows the youngest sister Eve, who is kind of a chaotic mess. Apparently I like chaotic people. So the book starts off with Eve trying to get a job. Her family are like, oh, you don't really stick to anything, and she's trying to prove them wrong. So she tries to get this job at a B&B. The interview doesn't really go very well, and then she runs over her new potential boss. So she ends up helping him out because she feels absolutely terrible about running him over, probably as you should. And I just really like their interaction. It's a very grumpy sunshine romance. It has autistic characters, and I just really enjoyed seeing how their relationship evolved. And I enjoyed Talia Hibbert's writing anyway. The smut was good, the writing was good, the banter was good. I just enjoyed it, and I think this might be my favourite book in the series. I feel like I said that about every book in the Brown Sisters trilogy, but like this is the last one, and like I reread the other two before I read this one, and this one is my favourite, so I also gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. The next book on this list is Rosalind Palmer Takes the Cake by Alexis Hall. This book is set on a reality baking show like the Great British Bake Off, but where they are a bit ruder and the stuff that happens. It's very queer, it's very funny, and I just really enjoyed it. I flew through it, I laughed out loud in multiple places, and just had a great time with it. Now, I did read the sequel to this later on in the year, and I didn't like that so much because I think it was a little bit too heavy, but this one, it just got it just right, and I adored it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. If you're after like a funny bake-off vibe that's a bit sexier, then try Rosalind Palmer. Then next up is Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. I was so happy that I enjoyed this book. I'm not sure if this one or Love Hypothesis is my favourite in the series now, but I just really enjoy it. This series is about women in STEM fields and usually has like an academic quality to it. I much prefer the ones that have academic qualities rather than being like necessarily job based. I don't know why. I feel like she's really got that academic thing nailed. Now this book follows Elsie, who is working part-time, fake dating people just because it makes really good money and her other job does not make good money. She's a theoretical physicist and she ends up going with this guy to his family's do and meets this guy who she really hates because he once published an article that completely discredited theoretical physics. So she hates this man. Turns out he's on the hiring committee for the job that she wants to get, and he knows her as somebody completely different than herself. So there are shenanigans galore. I personally really liked this one because I really liked the communication that ended up happening and like the way that everyone sort of went around issues, because Elsie has a lot of problems with actually talking about things, and it was really great to see Jack, the male main character, sort of encourage her to speak about what she actually wants. I just think that's so refreshing, and Jack is just like, oh, Jack. I love him. So yeah, he was great, it was great, I loved it, 5 out of 5 stars. Now we're on to the last book that I want to talk about today, and it is Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J Maas. I loved it. I don't really want to tell you too much about this because it is like the 8th book in the Throne of Glass series. There is so much that has happened leading up to this point, and it all comes to a head in this book. This book made me cry so many times. There were moments in this book I'm getting like choked up thinking about it. How pathetic is that? It's still just so fresh. There are some lines that I can just like bring to mind and they're just so upsetting, but like it's so good. It's so good. Yeah, I don't really know what to say about this except that it had the type of conclusion that made me feel the same way that I feel when I've watched Lord of the Rings. Like when you sat there throughout the entire extended edition marathon that you've been doing and you just feel I don't know, a sense of contentment and just happiness, and that's what this book made me feel like at the end. That probably made no sense to anybody but me, but I don't know, it made me feel feelings, and I don't know how to express feelings, so it made me feel feelings. 5 out of 5 stars. So there we have it. Those are the books that I think are my favourite books of 2023. Now I am honestly surprised by this list because I really expected there to be more fantasy books on it, and there just weren't, because I didn't really read that many fantasy books this year. That's something I'm going to work on in 2024, but I'll tell you about that in my goals video. It should be coming up, I don't know, whenever I get around to it. You'll see it when you see it. So if you like this video and you want to leave me a comment, please let me know what was your favourite book that you read in 2023, or like a really good book that you read in 2023. I'm always on the lookout for more stuff, even though I've got a giant TBR that I'm never going to possibly be able to read. So if you like this video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!